When you think of the greatest scorers in NBA history, a couple of players usually come to mind. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or maybe even LeBron James or James Harden. But there's one player that I believe beats all of them in raw scoring, and by the title and thumbnail of this video, you probably already guessed it. It's Kevin Durant. To explain why Kevin Durant is the greatest scorer of all time, I have to show you the criteria that I'm using for my decision making. Firstly, I think to myself, what makes a player a great scorer? A player that can shoot in great volumes is what comes to mind first, which should be really obvious. You can't be a great scorer if you aren't taking a lot of shots. A great scorer needs to put up high scoring numbers, lead the league in scoring multiple times, and simply be the guy that can put the ball into the hoop at any given moment. Secondly, he needs to do all of that on high efficiency. Theoretically, anyone can score a lot of points. The question is whether it takes you 20 or 50 attempts. You can't call yourself a good scorer if you are terribly inefficient. And finally, the most important of all is versatility. Many players have specific aspects of their game that they're good at, but only a few players are unstoppable in every area without exception. Where does Kevin Durant stand in these aspects, and why do they make him the greatest scorer ever? Let's break it down. First of all, let's talk about efficiency. Let's compare Kevin Durant's stats to some other notable players that have made their mark scoring the ball. As you can see, Kevin Durant ranks third in effective field goal percentage. He's also second in true shooting percentage, third in 2-point percentage, and second in 3-point percentage. To put all of that into perspective, because I know that is a lot of numbers, the only person that is more efficient is Stephen Curry, mostly due to his insane 3-point percentage. Steph is a great shooter and is the most efficient perimeter player ever, but other than that, Kevin Durant pretty much tops this list. Furthermore, I say Durant is the most efficient high volume scorer, and I'd even argue that Steph Curry doesn't particularly fulfill the criteria of high volume. He's only averaging 23.6 points per game and averaged more than 18 field goal attempts per game just 3 times in his career, translating to not a lot of shots being taken. The only other player to top Durant's effective field goal percentage and 2-point percentage is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is obviously a big man, and it would be really disappointing if he didn't top this aspect full of guards and wings. To put it frankly, a lot of Kareem's shots were really close to the rim, meaning he should make those more often than the shots that the rest of the guys on this list would take. All in all, I think it's safe to say that Kevin Durant is extremely efficient. He's top 2 in every category except 2-point percentage, which we already talked about is inflated due to the only center in this group. While Steph Curry might be the most efficient perimeter shooter, it's clear that KD not only scores more points, but is also more efficient. Nobody else can compete with his mix of pure scoring ability and efficiency. This stat should prove that Kevin Durant is the most effective high volume scorer in NBA history. Versatility is very important to become a great scorer. When I say versatility, I mean somebody that's a 3-level scorer, a player that can be effective from anywhere on the court, to have the ability to score on pretty much anyone, and who doesn't have a real weakness in their offensive game. There are a lot of specialists when we talk about the greatest scorers ever. In terms of the greatest shooter alive, that obviously goes to Stephen Curry, but he doesn't come without his weaknesses. He has no post-up game, isn't particularly strong, and isn't phenomenal at scoring around the rim. You know who is though? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But unlike Steph, Kareem lacks a jump shot. James Harden is one of the greatest isolation players ever, but he doesn't score anywhere between the 3-point line and the rim, so no mid-range shots for the beard. But on the other hand, you have Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, masters of the mid-range game and deadly at the rim, but they aren't fantastic shooters. Of course, you can blame their lack of a jump shot on the era that they played in, but if you compare their shooting stats to other players back then, it becomes clear that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant really weren't a high volume or accurate 3-point shooter. There's only one player that I can say for certain combines every single one of these aspects. Kevin Durant can do everything. He can shoot off the dribble, he can score with a pull-up jumper behind the arc, he's a mid-range master, he can dominate in the paint when he wants to, and he has the athleticism to put defenders on a poster. Most impressive of all, Kevin Durant has the unique gift of being a 7-footer with good movement, agility, and handles that are unheard of for his height. Don't be fooled by his official height being 6'10". That man is a 7-footer. Let's take a glimpse at some charts from the 2010 to 2019 seasons. This comparison should give you a better idea of how versatile he is. As you can see, he shoots it from literally anywhere on the court, while being an average to above average in terms of efficiency. This can also be seen in the next table I'm about to show you, where each player's field goal percentage is broken down to their respective distance from the hoop. Once again, you can see the amazing versatility KD has. He ranks first in every single category except for field goal percentage from 16 feet to the 3-point line and the 3-point line and beyond, and he's still top 3 in those categories. I think it becomes clear by now that KD has no real weaknesses or any weak spots. Jordan and Kobe, although were good around the rim and behind the arc, weren't as good as KD is. LeBron and Harden aren't as good as KD is in the mid-range area, and Steph Curry's abilities in the mid-range area and the rim are nowhere near Kevin Durant's. Kevin Durant scores from everywhere around the court, while most other players have specific spots they usually like to get to. You might ask yourself why this is even important. A bucket is a bucket in the end of the day. And while I do have to agree with you, having the ability to say to yourself, I'm gonna take it to the rim this possession, I'm gonna hit a fadeaway mid-range, I'm gonna pull up on LeBron James this possession like he's nobody, really keeps the defenders in check when they try to guard you. I mean, if your arsenal is as big as Kevin Durant's is, there's no way of knowing what he's gonna do next. And we are talking about the greatest scorer of all time, so being the best does matter in this case. Kevin Durant is too big and strong to be stopped by guards. He's too quick and fast to be stopped by a big man. His handles and extremely long arms are impossible to stop on isolation plays. How in the world are you supposed to guard this man? I'll answer that question for you. You can't. Last but not least, we're coming up to the final factor, volume. As I already mentioned to you, you can't be a great scorer if you aren't putting up high volume numbers. Let me say this before I continue. From now on, I will only compare Kevin Durant's numbers to what I believe is the closest competitor, Michael Jordan. Curry, Kareem, and Kobe haven't had enough points per game to compete with either two. LeBron isn't efficient enough, and Harden isn't versatile enough. It all comes down to Kevin Durant and Michael Jordan. Obviously, Michael Jordan was putting up higher scoring numbers and even led the league in scoring 10 times. Durant himself has collected 4 scoring titles and ranks 4th all-time in points per game. One main factor for the difference between Michael Jordan's volume and Kevin Durant's volume in scoring is their difference in usage rate and field goal attempts. Here's another chart comparing the two. Kevin Durant doesn't even come close to Michael Jordan in terms of usage percentage and field goal attempts. Very rarely was KD the one who took the most shots in the league or even had the ball in his hands the most. To spin that further, Kevin Durant has had exactly 2 seasons with more than 20 field goal attempts per game, while Michael Jordan has had only 3 seasons with less than 22 field goal attempts per game. You know what happened in the 2 seasons that Kevin Durant led the league in field goal attempts? He had his 2 best scoring years while winning the scoring title and putting up over 30 points per game. KD has never been the focal point of a system. He's never been the clear driving force of an offense. He was either the first or second option depending on the particular season or the specific matchup. He's had to share the ball with Steph Curry, another all-time great scorer. And he's also had to play with Russell Westbrook, who ranks 2nd in usage rate only behind Michael Jordan. Generally, Kevin Durant is still putting up extremely good scoring numbers on a credible efficiency, despite never being able to take as many shots as he wanted like Michael Jordan was. Also keep in mind that every team that Kevin Durant comes up against obviously knows who Kevin Durant is and what he's capable of. They're not going to make it easy on him. If we want to know what Kevin Durant is capable of, we need to calculate Kevin Durant's points per game on his efficiency and compare it to Michael Jordan's field goal attempts. Michael Jordan attempted 1.7 3-point attempts per game, while Kevin Durant's 3-point percentage is 0.383. This means that we can multiply Kevin Durant's 3-pointers made by Jordan's 3-point attempts, which would equal to 0.65. Now, Jordan attempted 21.2 2-pointers a game, and Kevin Durant's 2-point percentage is at 0.533. This means that if we multiplied Kevin Durant's efficiency with Michael Jordan's 2-point attempts, this would equal to 11.3. Kevin Durant also averaged 6.8 free throws made per game. Now, if we added that all together, we'd get 31.4, and done. Sorry if that was a lot of math for you. Trust me, it wasn't easy on me either. As you can see, if you let Kevin Durant take as many shots on his efficiency as Michael Jordan took, Kevin Durant would average 31.4 points per game, making him the all-time leading scorer. He would score 1.3 more points per game than Michael Jordan on better efficiency. Of course, this is purely hypothetical. Maybe Kevin Durant's efficiency would go down as he took more shots, but maybe it wouldn't. However, it's certainly not likely that he would suddenly be unable to hit anything at all. All I can say is, the main reason Michael Jordan has a high advantage over Kevin Durant in terms of points per game and volume scoring is because of his high field goal attempts, while KD has never had the opportunity to be the only true scorer on his team. To sum up this section, Michael Jordan was putting up insane scoring numbers. However, it's also clear that Kevin Durant would have scored even more points than Michael Jordan if Kevin Durant was given the same opportunities and field goal attempts. It shows us that Kevin Durant would have had the potential to be the all-time leading scorer in points per game in the NBA if he would have gotten the opportunity to take every single shot that he wanted. All in all, it's certainly a close race at the top. Michael Jordan is the all-time points per game leader, a 10-time scoring champ, and the greatest player of all time. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean he's also the greatest scorer of all time. He has never been the most efficient player, and he's missing a pivotal aspect of the argument, being the 3-point shot. While he was a mid-range killer and an athletic freak, he was never the best shooter. His role on the Chicago Bulls and his reputation of being one of the greatest players alive back in the day rightfully allow him to get the ball in his hands and do whatever he wanted. Obviously, his huge amount of field goal attempts and being the all-time leader in usage percentage pushed his volume beyond any boundaries. But there is still one guy that can compete with him. That one specific guy would have scored more points than the GOAT himself if he was allowed to be the clear-cut number one option on his team. He's the most versatile player in the league that strikes fear into every NBA fan when you see him coming down the court with the ball. He has no weaknesses on offense and is a positionless player, leaving defenders confused on what to do with him next. His name is Kevin Durant, and he's a scoring machine, and it's time we start acknowledging that. Steph Curry is without a doubt the greatest shooter of all time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the all-time leader in points scored. Kobe Bryant has had some of the most ridiculous stretches and scoring performances in NBA history. James Harden is arguably the best ISO player of all time. All of these players more or less have arguments for being the greatest scorer ever, but only Kevin Durant combines all of these aspects at a super high level. Nobody else with his size can move like he does. Nobody else with his handles is as big as he is. Nobody else has volume numbers scored on the same high level of efficiency as he has scored. He does what nobody else can do. He's a born scorer. Kevin Durant is the greatest scorer to ever exist, and he shows no signs of slowing down.